have some fun. And I mentioned that the Bonhoeffer book, which some of you know about, we're developing it into a movie. It should come out next year. But what I wrote is I think I put starring, did I say this? I said, yeah, Bonhoeffer movie starring Jackie Gleason and Art Carney. Thank you for getting that. But the beauty of it is that when I was in Houston, 39-year-old youth pastor introduced me. And he introduced me as, you know, someone who's done this and this and this and this, and who had written the book Bonhoeffer, which is being turned into a movie starring Ralph Cramden and Art Carney. And the funny thing is, there were a lot of, like, you know, nodding heads, a lot of gray hairs in the audience. It was an older crowd, and suddenly they went, boom, like, what? They knew that this was a problem. Jackie Gleason died in 1981, and he really couldn't star in the movie. He couldn't even be in the movie at all. So, I like to play with people's heads. I often say that the reason I like to kind of play with people's heads and joke around, I'm a big jokester, is because I think part of what humor is it challenges people. I like to confuse people enough to force them to pay attention. And I want you to think about that, right? Because we're lazy, we're broken, you know, sinners who like to take the easy path, and we like to take shortcuts. And I think by confusing people and scrambling their preconceived notions, it forces people to pay attention and actually think. And I think that's just something that it's vital for us to do, because we get in these ruts of thinking, right? If you're a political conservative, you only listen to other conservatives. If you're a political liberal, you only listen to other liberals. And you have your preconceived notions reinforced. And I like to play with people's heads and force them to say, what? Because then they may actually stop and think, and they can consider things. So now before I get into the substance of my talk, actually there's very little substance, so I'll say that for the last 2 minutes, but I just want to say up front how much it means to me that you've invited me to be here. I can hardly tell you what a blessing it is. I see some friends here from years ago as I look around the room. It just stuns me that Kurt Welling, is he still here? He hasn't left, from about 20 years ago. My friend Chris Noel just walked in. We were together at Yale. We met when I was 19. And this is incredible, but actually I was once 19. If you do the math, you realize it has to be true. And I've lived all the years since, and this might freak you out, in chronological order. Every single one of them. Now, if you think that's easy, I think maybe many of you have done it as well, but I did it consciously. For me, it was a choice. Some maybe I had no choice, but I actually chose to live my life that way. Before that, I can't speak for the years before that, but it's been very intentional. I did want to say that because there are a lot of young people here. Man, I know that word, man, right? Hip, groovy, chubby checker. What are you young people listening to today? Thank you. But what I was going to say was that I have started this radio show. I'm very excited about this. I don't take anything that I've done or accomplished. Sara said these wonderful things about me. Nobody is more astonished and grateful than I promise you. I promise you. I won't go into why that is, but I will just tell you that the idea that I get to talk on a radio program is 100 stations, coast to coast. I love being able to say coast to coast. One of the best things about America, we get to say coast to coast. Although lately I used to play with people's heads, I say coast to coast to coast. And people, even I don't know what to mean to that. But I want to tell you that I'm excited about this radio thing. I say I'm calling it the show about everything. That is a Seinfeld reference, right? It's not the show about nothing, it's a show about everything, because I love to talk about everything. It gets to the larger topic today. We're talking about who am I, which really gets to what is truth, how can we know whether there's such a thing as truth. Aren't you talking about everything? You're talking about everything. How can you understand anything if you don't know who you are, and actually, more importantly, what is truth? Because unless you know what is truth and how to frame the idea of truth, who even cares who you are? You know, most times in history, people weren't asking that selfish, narcissistic question, who am I? who are you? Shut up, you're a slave, and make more bricks. You know, that's who you are. You don't really care. This is not about you, slave, you know. So the very idea that we ask, who am I, is a very modern question. And so I have no idea what I was talking about. What was I talking about? Yeah, I was talking about everything. So my show, anyway, I guess this is my commercial up front. I hope that any of you who are on Twitter will follow me at Twitter, Eric Metaxas. I don't have any funky handle, Eric Metaxas. I'm going with that. And it's even spelled the way I spell my own name. And but just because I love to keep in touch, and it's so hard in the few minutes we have for me to say everything I want to say. But to begin at the beginning, who am I? Let me just tell you very briefly who I am, besides all these tremendous things that Sara just referred to. By the way, it's just a fraction of the things I've accomplished. I just want to tell you. Go to my website, and you'll see that I've been very busy typing up my bio. But I want to tell you who am I. And so I'll give you the super nutshell version. And the reason I refer to my website and Twitter is because, as I say, everything I don't get to say, there's a lot of interesting stuff, videos and things that I posted. But the nutshell version of who am I is that, other than I being I, what do we say I am me? What do we say here at Dartmouth? Yeah, don't answer these questions, just say right. I guess my story is that my parents are European immigrants, that by the grace of God, they're still living. They're in Denver, Connecticut. I plan to have dinner with them. And my mom came from Germany in the 50s. My dad came from Greece in the 50s. They met in an English class in New York City, learning how to speak the English language. And what a wonderful thing. And you know, people who don't understand why immigrants think America's a great country. We know America has problems, but let me tell you, where else could my parents go from war-torn Europe, where they were being tremendously oppressed? My mother by communism in East Germany, my father by the economic horrors of post-war Greece, Civil War, to come to America knowing that there was this idea of liberty, that they could work hard, and that there was this promise that they could raise kids and buy a house without college degrees, and that someday their kids could grow up and go to an Ivy League university and become an English major and write, even though they didn't, to this day, have heavy accents. Think about that. It's really, that's the American dream. So my parents raised me working class European immigrants with this dream that if you work hard, you know, you can make something of yourself, whatever that means. And so if you're raised Greek and German, you all know what that means. It means you will be raised Greek. So please, it's very... which means we went to the Greek Orthodox Church, of course. Grew up in the Greek Orthodox Church. Now for me, I've talked about this. If you haven't seen my speech at the National Prayer Breakfast, I talk about, this is a very big issue for me, is the difference between what I call dead religion, Bonhoeffer and Karl Barth. So we talk about dead religion, which is a moral system, right? How do I get to heaven? How do I fix the world's problems with these rules? And I work myself up the ladder. You know, that is not something that the Bible is about. But sort of bastardized, counterfeit versions of the faith are dead religion, right? So there are Christian versions of dead religion, and then there are all kinds of other dead religions from around the world, and it's how do I get from here to there, to heaven, okay? What the Bible's supposed to be about, real faith, says, I can never get to heaven. Who am I kidding? There's an infinite gulf between me and heaven. Therefore, all I can do is throw myself on the mercy of God and say, God, if you can come down and get me, I'm willing. Would you come and get me? Now that's the gospel in a nutshell, right? That's it right there. It's not about I get there, I'm a better person than you. If I know anything, I know that I can't get to heaven, that I'm no better than you. I'm no better than anyone who's ever lived. I'm broken. I'm broken. I need help. And I cry out to God and I say, God, if you're there, and I think you are, I hope you are, would you help me? Would you come and get me? I need saving. I need a savior. Okay. So God in his mercy comes and gets us. He doesn't say, no, 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 no. You gotta quit smoking first and then I'll be right down. He says, the very fact that you realize you need me is good enough. You reach out to me in your brokenness and just say, come and get me. me. That's all the prayer that I need. And I will come, I, who am infinite and eternal, I can negotiate that infinite gulf between you and me. I can do it, and I will do it because I love you. And of course, he did it historically. He did it in Jesus, coming from eternity, outside time and space, into this world to get us, basically. That's the short version, right? He came to get us, and he suffered and died. He's not a stranger to suffering. He chose to suffer because he loved us. Now, that's the gospel. That's faith in the God of the Bible who loves us. But then there's this thing called dead religion. And it comes, as I said, in an infinity of forms, right? There's Hindu dead religion. There's Muslim dead religion. We've been treated to a lot of that recently in culture just to see what does it look like when you make a moral system God. It's frightening, because if you don't make it, it's frightening. It's fear-based. Where's the joy, the love, the peace? Now, there's a lot of that fear-based dead religion in the church over 2,000 years. We know that, and we get blamed for that. When people say, oh, you're a Christian, half the people you bump into, if not more at this point, think that's where you're coming from. Well, I'm sure there are some Christians that are coming from that point of view. I have met them. They have written into my radio show this